Morning. Welcome to this special day and a special event. Today, we're doing something that we've been doing throughout the lockdown, the Randstad Leadership Dialogues in association with BW Businessworld and BW People. Today, we have a set of leaders from various walks of life, primarily corporate India, and they are leading companies in diverse sectors. What we're discussing is how to get employees back safely in a hybrid model, looking after employees, their wellness, and how does the hybrid model work. And the emphasis is a lot on safety at work, both safety in terms of physical safety and emotional safety. So let me introduce you. I know the poll is in progress, but let me introduce you to the panelists today. Let me introduce each one of them. They're familiar faces, but here is a list of the leaders joining the discussion today. And let me, in no particular order, first introduce Mr. Paul Dupuis. He's the Managing Director and CEO of Randstad in India. He's also an author of a book called The E5 Movement. Welcome, Paul. And
good morning,
from Bangalore.
Thank you.
Let me also welcome Ms. Divya Karani. She's the CEO of Dentsu X. Dentsu is among the largest media agencies in India, and Divya is a veteran of the industry, and really, Divya is joining us from Mumbai. Welcome, Divya.
Good morning, and thank you. Thank you, Annurag. Good morning, everyone.
Let me introduce Mr. B. Thiagarajan, who's the Managing Director and CEO of Blue Star, and he's joining us from Mumbai. As the summer season comes, really, I'm sure Blue Star will do look forward to the summer season this year. And again, Mr. Thiagarajan has a large workforce. So welcome, Mr. Thiagarajan.
Thank you, Dr. Batra. Good morning, everyone.
And last but not the least, let me welcome Mr. Marzin, Shroff, who's the Managing Director and CEO of Eureka, Forbes. Again, a company that doesn't really need an introduction. Marzin, welcome to the BW Businessworld and BW People Dialogue in association with the Randstad Leadership Dialogues. And Marzin joins us from Mumbai. Thank you, Marzin, for joining in today morning.
Thank you, Annurag, and good morning to everybody.
We are doing this after a year of being in a post-pandemic world, after being in lockdowns multiple times. And let me start by asking each of the panelists, how are they working right now? What percentage of their workforce is working from home, and how much of them are working remotely? And really, hybrid working is the way forward. So let me start first with Marzin this time. Marzin, again, Eureka Forbes means a big sales staff, a big field force. They have to physically go and fix the appliances, the water purifier and other appliances that are part of your portfolio. So what part of your workforce is remotely working, and what part of your force is active in terms of being in the office or outside in the field? You'll have to unmute yourself, Marzin.
Sorry. In terms of our service team, we have to physically deliver service. So we enter a kitchen every second, and we're doing that even today during the lockdown. This would be one of our biggest months in terms of service because we continue to service our customers. As far as sales is concerned, we do a combination of the two. We are looking at we've developed a software called Code, which is contactless demo for our Eurochamps. And we try and do remote demos now, from people's homes. So there's a gentleman sitting in UP who has sold 16 vacuum cleaners to his customers in Mumbai. So this is the new world.
Okay, so you're saying it's a combination for the functions that can deliver what they need to deliver through a virtual model. You've championed contactless demos, and that is helping you sell well, interact well with your customers, but installation needs to happen physically. So that's happening physically. So in the true word of hybrid, your operations and your office operations are hybrid. And Marzin, you are going to the office or you're operating out of home?
I'm in the office as we speak,
Yeah.
but I operate partly from home, partly from the office. With the
Okay.
current second situation of the lockdown, I think we've been a little more prudent about calling folks to the office again. So it's a bit of a we need to make sure that everybody's healthy, and stays healthy that way.
Thank you so much. The reason I'm asking this, as we get into the finer aspects of how do we bring safety, emotional safety, and what are we doing for the well-being of the employees in this new hybrid working model, I want to get a reality check from all of you in terms of how you're working. Let me now ask Paul. Paul, again, you have a very large workforce. Of course, Bangalore relatively has been better than other cities in terms of COVID. How many of your colleagues, and I know you'd opened a new office just before the lockdown,
Right.
new building. So have you started working out of that, Paul?
Well, Annurag, good morning, everyone, and thank you for having me today. Actually, behind me is a shot of that new office in downtown Bangor, a 7-floor standalone tower building. And the scene behind me is extremely humbling as a leader. This is the day, February 26th last year, when we cut the ribbon on this brand new building. Think back to that time, February 26th, the wind was at our backs. 2 weeks later, we locked it down. So I have a brand new shiny building in downtown Bangor, which is empty. Now, having said that, we just recently started a process to reopen our offices across the country, beginning with Randstad Tower here in Bangor. And we're following the 10% rule. So in this particular location, we have 500 seats. So the maximum is 50 seats. But everything we do is based first on data around safety, around COVID in the particular location, and ultimately that we create a clean zone, that our offices are safe places to be. And that to me is strongly connected with the theme today, which is wellness, both of course physically, but it's also about emotional wellness. What we're seeing though is that, and we're seeing this across the world of Randstad in the 38 countries where we operate, somewhere around 25 to 30% of people do not want to go back to the office, regardless of whether the company deems it to be safe, the government says it's safe, regardless of whether vaccines are administered. There is a large piece of the workforce that simply does not want to go back to work for different reasons. One of those is concerns of safety. The other one is that they're comfortable working in this new world. So we're preparing for that. We're rethinking the purpose of our locations, of our offices, as we move forward in the new world. I absolutely believe the office of the future will be a place to collaborate, innovate, and celebrate, not necessarily a place to do work. So this is a massive rethink for us all. We developed an app which is called Move in Sync, which is really a contactless approach to coming back to the office. You register, you reserve your desk, you get a QR code, you show up at the office, you sanitize, temperature check, show the QR code, get admitted. I do that whenever I go into the office. Today, I chose to work from home in the virtual scene, but I have been going to the office recently and it feels great. Marzin, sitting there is making me want to get back to my desk as well.
Okay, thank you, Paul, for that detailed input into how you're coming back to office in your own ecosystem and how workspaces have to become a place for collaboration, for innovation and celebration. Let me go to Ms. Divya Karani. She's the CEO of Dentsu in India. Divya, the media planning buying business, the communication advisory business is a people's business. We don't have a product. The only service we have is our people. So tell me, when it comes to Dentsu how are you being able to work with your colleagues? Have you come back to office or you still are working remotely mostly?
So much like what Paul said, Annurag, and what Marzin also referred to, a bit of both. We have, held ourselves back from being prescriptive. And of course, I started attending office 2-3 months ago, not regularly, as and when needed to. The very fact that I was attending office was a signal by itself, but we have refrained, and specifically so, to Paul's point, from being, that you need to come and so needs to come. There are times where personal interaction is needed and we do what we need to, but we do it in very many ways voluntarily without being told to. Thereafter, we've learned a lot this past 1 year. So whether it is right from US to UK to Tokyo, barring the time zones, we team almost effortlessly. So that I hope, it's a new way of working. We've learned a lot this past 1 year. Honestly, if I were to have been asked this question a year ago, I may not have, adapted and adopted this work from home so effortlessly that we have done. So there it is.
I think you need to be unmute, Annurag, you're on mute.
You're in Bombay. Thank you, Paul, for prompting me. You're in Bombay. I know Dentsu has a large operations in Delhi, and I know you would come down to the Delhi office, work from the Delhi office for a couple of days. So clearly now remote working has become a way of life. Let me bring in Mr. Thiagarajan. Mr. Thiagarajan, again, Blue Star is a large team, a large workforce, and it's season time for you. So it's about sales, it's about service, it's about installation. How are you being able to lead such a large operations in the peak time? And summer seems to be kind of blooming.
Dr. Batra, thank you. The sales has been good. That compared with previous year, it's upwards of around 20%. I think the coming months will be witnessing around 25% growth. That again is due to the fact what Paul mentioned. The many people are getting used to working from remote places, so they are making their home comfortable. And that is very clearly evident from the fact that the air conditioner sales are up, or they are moving to larger residential accommodation. In our case, the factories are working with full strength. The service operation is working with full strength. Construction sites, wherever it is allowed, that is working in full strength. As far as our offices are concerned, we are working with around 25% staff. And specifically in Mumbai, where you are aware from June, I had been going to office. From this week, we have restricted completely. Unless and until it is essential, no one need to come to office in Mumbai. It is practically closed, the office locations. And the sales takes place at dealer locations, and therefore the field staff are there. As a number of people mentioned, these are digitally enabled roster that is happening.
And for us being optimistic in the fact that business is coming back, because business is also means livelihoods for a lot of people. So work is a way for a lot of families to survive and thrive. So clearly, when an organization does well, it means it augurs well for a lot of employees and colleagues. So thank you for sharing that. And you rightly pointed out that we got used to working in a very remote way. And in fact, if I may say, these days, I feel uncomfortable going out, not because of COVID, but it's just that it's so much efficient to be able to work out of home. It saves time. You can avoid traffic. So really, we've got used to the benefits of remote working. Now, today we are discussing a well-being of employees and wellness of employees, and we're talking mind, body, soul, and we're talking of both physical well-being in terms of following the COVID protocols, in terms of safety. All referred to some of them in terms of taking temperature, so on and so forth. But let me now get into specific questions. Let me start with you, Mr. Thiagarajan, first. Mr. Thiagarajan, in the last 1 year, you've been able to discharge your duties as the leader of the organization. Your departments heads have been able to work with you. Tell us, what are you doing in Blue Star to make sure that the well-being of your employees, of your team members, is being really looked after in a deep and detailed way?
The very first thing, Dr. Batra, is with regard to the compassion. So they are undergoing stress in their personal life. How you can become much more compassionate than what you had been. That is the first part of it. The second one is you're aware, our business is entirely dependent on summer season. We suffered a lot. Therefore, we had quite a bit of restrictions coming into force, like the increments were cut, salaries were cut in quite a few cases, and the promotions were denied. So therefore, how fast we can bring it back? I am going to wellness, but before that, the mental state is determined by these factors as well. So what we started doing was from July onwards, as the economy started reviving, we started rolling back some of those restrictions or the conditions that we have imposed on our employees. The next one is that we ensured that the transfers at this point of a time, relocating a different location is very, very difficult for people. And the inputs in terms of training and development, extraordinary efforts went on. What we couldn't do in the previous years, we equipped the employees with talent and their capability competence building. The other things are the physical fitness as well as yoga. We partnered with quite a bit of agencies to get that imparted. And the other part is in blue collar workers, including their families, how nutrition, wellness can be brought into their own lives, which was an area which we had neglected for quite some time. We set it right completely. In fact, Blue Star's CSR is getting redefined as wellness, health, hygiene. So we have redefined that space completely. It is not only for employees, for the society as a whole. And as you are aware, there had been many doubts with regard to air-conditioned spaces being, this may be detrimental to the pandemic. So a lot of research and development had gone in terms of ventilation, fresh air augmentation, filters that can remove viruses and air pollution. So the products are equipped with, and our customers as well as our employees are provided with those techniques as well.
Mr. Thiagarajan, you address some of the questions that I was going to ask you a little later. You alluded to them, but let me ask you a direct question. Almost in a survey, 67% to 70% large and mid-sized organizations are not in favor of a post-pandemic remote working setup. They like face-to-face work. They like the old way of, what Paul calls presenteeism. People come to the office, not necessarily their productivity is high. So they're present, but not necessarily the productivity is high. So, globally, remote working has been accepted and it's become a way of life. But in India, we still, as I said, 67% of large corporates and 70% of mid-sized corporates are in favor of, the old way of showing up in office. What do you have to say that? And, again, you talked about the fact that, air conditioning is good, but what do you think, both from your own organization and you are also working with large corporations to make sure their offices are air conditioned? So keeping with the new norms, what are the new things that are coming in terms of social distancing when you're building the office? So give us a sense of how you are thinking.
Dr. Batra, close to around 100,000 offices will be maintaining the air conditioning or electrical or plumbing, any of the services we would be maintaining across the country. Our assessment matches with that of yours. Quite a few places people would like to come to office and work, but except that none of them are operating with 100% strength. I have a feeling we have to live with this reality. It is not offices are going to disappear. There will be offices, and those offices may have to be modified to handle the new situation. The very first one is that I'm finding quite a few of our customers redesigning their conference rooms so that social distancing can be. The canteens are being modified. I have a couple of customers over the weekend, I dealt with them. Within the office, they are using the extra space to create some wellness centers, like for yoga or exercise, because all the time you can't be sitting in front of the computer and doing your work. And in terms, nothing can substitute fresh air. In a closed space, I think possibilities of infections will be high. So therefore, even though air conditioner will have the filters and other stuff, but physically the transmission can take place by chance if someone is infected. So it is in this context, you need to look at the indoor air quality as well. How we can ensure that the workplace is adequately healthy and there is absolutely no concern for any employee who is walking in there.
Thank you, Mr. Thiagarajan. I just want to ask you a follow-up question. What are your plans to dedicate part of your employee well-being budgets into, let's say, health and wellness? You talked about yoga. And second is, how has it impacted your hiring plans? You talked right up front about bringing back salaries because last year, there was salary cuts, there was reorganizations, promotions were put on freeze. So one, as summer comes, and especially your business is a summer heavy business, you yourself talked about that the business is up 20%, you expect it to better. So how has it impacted your hiring plans?
Fortunately, Dr. Batra, this is an industry which is doing extremely well at this point of time with the production-linked incentive scheme, China plus one manufacturing, supply chain creation in India. We need hell a lot of industry as a whole is recruiting in large numbers, and we are facing shortages across levels. Like, for example, Sri City is going to be an important hub for air conditioning industry. So far, it was NCR. You can imagine suddenly we need hundreds of production managers and thousands of blue-collar workers. And the expansion plan calls for quite a bit. In fact, in the senior management level itself. So first of all, there is huge shortage of people. The second one is people do not relocate at this point of time at all. Earlier itself, it used to be difficult. I can't move someone from North India to Sri City. I cannot move anyone from Maharashtra to Sri City. At this point of a time, they want to be.
And for our viewers, Sri City is in Hyderabad. Again, the promoter is a very good friend of mine. Srini Raju has started the Sri City, and he's quite a visionary himself. Just want to mention that it is in the southern part of the country, and it's in.
So there are 4 large air conditioning manufacturers setting up the facility there. So number one is you do not have talent at this point of time. All of us are fighting. The second one you can imagine is that you need to ensure the projects are going to happen as the cases are rising. So at this juncture, it is also a fact that the salary levels are going up. So it is good news for the potential employees and headhunters. And it is going to be a challenge for the investors to get the projects on track in time.
Thank you so much, Mr. Thiagarajan. Let me now go to Paul. Paul, again, you heard Mr. Thiagarajan, and you engage with a lot of leaders, CEOs, and advise them on their hiring and manpower. Now, Randstad India has been recently been declared among the top 10 best workplaces in health and wellness by GPTW. Could you share with us a few successful initiatives that you and your organization at Randstad India have taken to implement health and wellness and the impact of that?
I'd be happy to. Thank you, Annurag. And well, first of all, in 2019, well before the COVID crisis started, we sat down as a senior leadership team at Randstad in Bangor, in fact, and we made a bold decision to put people at the front of every conversation. Now, it's one thing to say it, it's another thing to do it. The proof in the pudding comes when we gather the finance team for our monthly update meeting, and they talk about people first before the numbers. And we got there. We came into 2020 where all of our meetings, we call them compass meetings, start with people. In fact, HR is at the very front, but it's not only about HR because the people agenda is owned by everyone. It's shared by everyone. And so we started talking about wellness. We started talking about things we could do to engage more with our colleagues. We put 62,000 people to work every day in India. It's across the four corners of the country. It's a huge responsibility. And to the points that have been raised earlier, it's so important that we ensure that people have gainful employment, especially during tough times. And that's a promise we've kept and we've been able to honor. No jobs have been lost during this crisis, so we're very proud of that. So we started off into the crisis with one key mantra: safety, engagement, then comes productivity. Outcomes follow when you have a safe environment, whether it's physical or emotional, both. And of course, people are engaged and feeling part of it. We did a number of things. And it's interesting to hear what the other panelists are talking about. We did what everyone else did. I'm a fitness guy. I love my morning walks and so on. So immediately with my leadership team started to create home videos of us doing our favorite fitness routine. We added some music in the background and we shared it with colleagues and we challenged them to do the same. So that was our first reaction. Then we quickly realized that we needed to take care of people's mental and emotional health. So we launched some programs around that, and I'll talk about that in a moment. We then partnered with Oxfam on their walks. We had done the 100-kilometer walk previously, so we then did virtual walks with Oxfam to protect the unprotected, especially women in India. And again, we were able to participate in a safe environment across India. We launched Randstad Carnival. We also launched a radio station internally. And so the leadership team rotated. It was DJ Paul. I got to play all my favorite tunes from the 1980s for all these young folks in Randstad who probably never heard the songs before. And I told stories around each of those songs. Then we invited our executive board members from around the world to visit us virtually and also be DJs. And we got to hear stories from them. All these small things added up to an engagement level which we had not seen before. Now, I want to give one more example. In fact, today, we have Divya Manoj. You'll see her on the screen there. We started a program which has been a lot of fun for me. It's called CEO for a Day. And Divya is our CEO for a day today. It happens to fall on today. And so she's joining us today. It's a very competitive contest, more than I expected. So basically, the CEO for a Day winner stays with me all day long, in this case, virtually. Divya and I started this morning at 7 a.m. on my walk in Cubbon Park, and Divya up in her neighborhood. And she's been with me all day. And Divya happens to be in the middle of this story of wellness. She's part of our HR team responsible for these initiatives. So Annurag, if it's okay with you, Divya can comment on a couple of things, especially around wellness that we've been implementing.
And Divya, clearly, if you're the CEO, make sure that you give as your partner, you give us 100% bonus on delivering on all our commitments if you're the CEO for the day. Let me not address that to Paul, but to you. But on a serious note, Divya, we'd love to know a bit about what Paul has built on, what Paul has said, so that our viewers, and I want to tell all the panelists that we have 217 on Zoom, and we have another 600 on Facebook, another 300 on Twitter. So it's considering it's a Tuesday morning, we're 1 year into pandemic, having again it's 217 on Zoom. So it's a very large audience. It is because of the kind of panelists we have and the kind of outreach we've been able to do. So Divya, why don't you build on what Paul said?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Batra. That was a great question, and happy to be adding more comments to what Paul said. When COVID struck, we saw every challenge that came our way as an opportunity to do something different and creative. So as Paul rightly said, we kept people at the center of everything we did. And that gave rise to our philosophy of be kind to your mind, body, and spirit. So every initiative that we launched in the organization, some of which that Paul just called out, were under the umbrella of Be Kind to Your Mind. And our initiatives had a holistic approach of targeting our colleagues' physical wellness, financial wellness, physical well-being, along with mental well-being that led to meaningful engagement of our colleagues, and finally a healthy work-life balance. Along with added on, we also did some affinity group colleague sessions with Women Forward, Men Forward, and Parent Forward, where colleagues were able to talk and share their experiences or seek support and guidance from the group. We also had a mental wellness expert called Yodos, who supported our colleagues to deal with whatever burdens them emotionally. So all these initiatives actually led us to move the needle on our engagement scores, and we're very proud about the recognition. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let me bring in the two CEOs that we would like to hear from. Let me first bring in Divya. Divya, first of all, congratulations on continuing to win businesses. Today we read that you won the Roka business, right? The Roka sanitary brand. Now, Dentsu is from a design standpoint, in the way you operate, you've been disruptive in the way you've been operating in the marketplace. And again, you recently, a global agency, RECMA, which every year brings out the media agency rankings, also ranked you as a leader. Now, how do you balance between changing employee demands and employer stakeholder expectations in a hybrid model of working? Both sides there are, let's say, expectations, and they are ongoing, they're developing as you deal with this new hybrid model. So give us a sense of how you've been able to deal with that.
Okay, yes, thank you. Thank you, Annurag. We have been adept in navigating last year, and I think to my mind emerged stronger for it. How and why? Primarily three areas, I would say. Firstly, designing an ecosystem that acknowledges and deeply understands both the demands and the expectations. So work from home has its upsides, and we've all spoken about it, but it's also not easy for people and organizations. Human to human interactions, Paul averred to it earlier, is at the heart of who we are actually. And yet we all know that our earlier way of working is no longer the ideal way. I mean, we would in very many ways be rubbishing our last year's experience if we were not to acknowledge that loud and clearly. So harnessing the periodic personal interaction, as well as all that last year has taught us on collective team camaraderie, stoked both physically and virtually triumphs. So that is the first area. The second area, and I think I speak for all of us together, is factoring in constant change. It's a given now, and our clients, ours, and our ecosystem's goals need to be completely aligned in that. So we must all fearlessly pivot, step forth, almost to embrace this change. At Dentsu, we often, talk about that we are the champions of meaningful change. So developing a design that in itself is adaptable and evolving. So that's the second area. The third area is all parties and stakeholders working with each other rather than against. So I mentioned the fact that, whether it's our clients, ours, our ecosystem's goals, when they are aligned, it becomes almost underpinned as a culture of us, a culture of trust. And that changes the behavior from I, me, myself to one of generosity. If we can inculcate that, to my mind, we are home. So that is how and why, if Annurag, when you asked, we have managed to turn problems into progress. And this is not over. We are talking about post-COVID. We all know just when we thought it's over and done with, it's not. So it is something, agility, being adept is part and parcel of our DNA now. So that I hope addresses. And I love this concept, Paul, of CEO for the day. Divya, what I'd love to hear from you is your views at the end of today. It's early day. Let me know whether you envy Paul or do you really envy Paul?
That's a good one. And I would like to again prompt the audience for the audience poll. Please do participate. You're a large audience. Your voice matters. What you feel matters. We'd love to know what you're thinking. So do participate in the conversation by participating in the poll. Let me bring in Marzin. Marzin, we started with you. You heard all your colleagues were senior leaders, like you run large organizations. I want to understand from you, And this is the poll: which work style makes you more productive? Work from home, work from office, hybrid working, both together. So do give us a sense of what you feel. You're a large audience, so clearly we'll be able to get a slice which is representative of what corporate India is thinking. And Marzin, let me bring in you. As I said, you heard everyone, and you shared your views upfront. Tell me, when it comes to working now, let's hope in the next few weeks, Corona subsides and we have the choice of either doing remote working or being in office. As a CEO, what would you like to embrace? And what do you think are the best practices in that way forward, which will lead to the well-being of your colleagues?
Good question. When the first lockdown happened, we realized that remote working actually helped us get our productivity up, which is really interesting because people were more on time, people would come into meetings, people would work from the comfort of their homes, etc. And then we realized that towards the middle or end of the lockdown, we realized that being in office actually does increase your productivity again. So there are certain things which you need to have, which are brainstorming sessions, ideating sessions. Those happen better when you're in person, when there's a whiteboard around where you can scribble, you can take notes, you can bounce off thoughts of each other. So really, I think the world is moving to a hybridized model. I don't think there will be a prescriptive thing to say only these people can work out of home and these people will be working out of office. There are some jobs, like being in a retail store, you have to be in a retail store. There are some jobs which are, servicing customers at home, you have to be there. But there are people who like to work out of office. There are people who like to work out of home. We do not want to be prescriptive. We will leave that option open. But I realize that, sitting in a more collaborative environment across the table from each other, we've got this great product called Corona Guard, which helps, reduce infectivity. So we use that in our boardroom, we use that in our canteen, and we brainstorm with each other quite a bit. So I think this is the new normal going forward. And as Paul mentioned, 25-30% of the people prefer to work out of home irrespective. So we will have to take that into cognizance.
And Marzin, how is the role of, while it's a collective decision making led by the CEO, how is the role of HR in terms of these initiatives, in terms of decision making on hybrid model and overall changed or enhanced?
So Annurag, the way we are governed as a company is we have an apex team called the core leadership team. So these are all my direct reports. And HR is very, very critical, in this entire process. What we do is we collectively meet virtually twice a week, every Monday and every Thursday from 9:30 in the morning through about 11. And during those meetings, we discuss all the people initiatives. We also have a core HR team which goes and cascades all the way down into the field and uses this. So we have a very bottom-up and a top-down approach simultaneously. Both work together. We get inputs from the market. We get inputs from the field. We take those inputs, we process it, and then of course we create people practices as a result of that. One of the things we found successful for us are the town halls that we have. We have regular town halls. We take questions from the team during those town halls, and because it's virtual, it's pretty easy to bring in as many people as you want. So when we have these interactive sessions, people tell us all their fears. People talk about what's worrying them, what their concerns are, and we're able to collect and collate this and put it together. And these are good news and bad news meetings because you have to give them a reality check of what's happening. So while we're doing that, we're also listening to the other side and coming up with some very inspirational stories. We've got a concept called the Euro Hero. Everything in Eureka Forbes starts with Euro. So we've got Euro heroes who we celebrate for going out of the way to do a great job. So we have this gentleman in Kerala. I was giving a story about him the other day, who actually, was servicing a customer, realized that they don't have enough food. They were senior citizens. He actually called up an NGO, got the NGO to deliver food to these customers' houses, to their home. So, and he is one. We have people who have spent nights in hospitals. So we have a lot of heroes who we celebrate. And this becomes a part of the culture. So we listen, we share stories, we inspire people, and at the same time, we take care of their issues.
Thank you, Marzin, for being able to give us a very real answer on that. Now, we have lots of audience questions coming, 8 till now. I would like to involve the audience in it. So I want one closing comment from all of you, and I'll start with Paul this time, then Divya, then Marzin, and then Mr. Thiagarajan. Paul, tell me, safety at workplace has become even more important, right? And I just want to announce the results of the poll. Work from home only 14%, work from office 13%, and hybrid is 77%. So clearly, it's not surprising because, as you rightly said, Marzin, some things are best done virtually, but for some things, from time to time, we may need to do a face-to-face interaction. So clearly, the results for everyone to see. So, Paul, I was asking you, in terms of safety, both physical safety and emotional safety, tell us how important has that become, and what are you doing to be able to implement that in your workspace?
Well, first of all, the data that you just showed speaks volumes for all of us as leaders, and we need to keep our finger on that pulse. Clearly, we need to change the way we lead. And for all of us, this has been a challenge. How do we ensure that our people are safe physically and mentally by sitting in front of a screen? How do we lead virtually? It's been challenging for all the CXOs I talk to, and I talk to leaders daily, offline and online. And we're all facing the challenge here because there's no playbook. None of us were trained to do this. In full transparency, we're learning as we go, just like all of our colleagues. But I think that's also re-emphasize the importance of leader as human. I would say that, Annurag, moving forward, safety will always be at the top of our agenda. I think the past year, crisis brings opportunity, and the past year has given us an opportunity as leaders to reset and really realize and identify what is the most important thing about what we do as leaders. And that is to enable every single member of our teams to shine. And for them to shine, to be the best version of themselves, they need to, one, feel safe, they need to be engaged, and they need to be enabled to shine. And so moving forward, leader as enabler will absolutely be the most critical quality. I would call it a muscle of leadership. And that's backed up by what we just heard earlier from the other panelists, compassion, true care for our people. So I think safety will be very important moving forward. And we're all going to have to take action accordingly to ensure that our people are safe.
There are audience questions, and let me direct those to you. Let me bring this to Divya, and I'll take this to everyone. How are you managing to keep your employees engaged and shining? Mr. Singh is asking that. So what are you doing to get them engaged and shining? Paul gave some examples. There are more comments coming, but I would like your comments on how you're keeping the Dentsu colleagues engaged and shining, as the person who asked the question says.
Absolutely. By celebrating each and everyone, almost by celebrating their idiosyncrasies as well, because we are richer for it. As simple as that. So as a leader, of course, you need to walk your talk and ensure that principles and philosophy stay at the center, but keeping our minds and heart open at all times. And the ideas and innovations can come from anyone and anywhere. So understanding and acknowledging, I think Paul averted to it a little earlier, and then communicating. I cannot begin to emphasize how much communicating, because making sure that every member in the team knows the larger holistic picture and their purpose in that whole ecosystem. So that is another point. Again, I think we mentioned it earlier, I'm picking it up. Empathy is no longer sufficient. It is compassion is the call of the day. Clearly, I think Mr. Thiagarajan called it out. And I love the way, sir, where you mention that actually open air is all that we are about. It's not just confined spaces. So what are you doing? You are transcending and going over and above your own company to the larger society. So full marks to you for that. And lastly, making it real. Making it real, turning whatever our principles, our philosophy is into real measurable plans. I think companies and leaders owe it to themselves and their stakeholders just this.
Okay, beautiful. So everyone is unique. Celebrate them. Celebrate their idiosyncrasies, and kind of empower them. Let me bring in Mr. Thiagarajan. Mr. Thiagarajan, what are you doing to be able to engage with your colleagues better, deeper, and celebrate them?
Dr. Batra, ours is a very unique organization. Our internal, surveys and studies show that our people are highly motivated when the company is growing. So they have to see the growth. So therefore, I tell myself I should not stop any kind of investments. And the moment I cut the advertising expenses, all boys get demotivated. So I can tell you at this juncture, compared with previous year, we are almost increasing our advertising spends by around 40%. So the manufacturing capacity addition, it is happening now in a very big way. Close to around 350 crores of investment is going in there. You might have listened to my comments in CNBC a little while ago. So the growth and development, it translates into an energy within themselves. Of course, as Paul mentioned, all of us are learning that safety first, we have to enable them to deliver and as leaders. And but most important thing, one of the important lessons that I have learned is the moment you cut back investments, it sends a very wrong signal. For a vibrant organization, given the current economic outlook for India, we should go ahead and invest. Of course, taking care of all safety protocols.
Marzin, let me ask you the same question. What are you doing to engage your colleagues in this hybrid way of working?
I think a lot has already been said. We do all of those. We do contests, online games. We do a lot of engagement activities which are already there. But I'd like to call on one thing which is very important, which is we have an annual conference every year. It's called SMART, Sales, Marketing, Accounts, Research, Training, etc. So that conference is a big thing for us. It's an annual thing. We have about 500 people, 600 people coming into a physical location. What we did this year was we had a virtual conference, and really typically, all awards are a very important part of it because it's part of the R&R, and having a good awards ceremony is absolutely critical. So what we did this year was, part of the engagement is that instead of having the award winners come on stage virtually, we took the awards to their homes, and we made sure that every single person who was an award winner received an award in their home, and it was such a surprise in front of their families when the doorbell rang, and the award was given. It was a phenomenal surprise for them, and it was amazing. So that's just one. We have, as Mr. Thiagarajan said, you have to keep showing progress. So we launched products online virtually now. So when you talk about engagement, you need to make sure that people are learning all the time. So we've had about 4,000 of our leaders going through 32 different programs on learning, on skills, upgradation, etc. We launched products. We've had town halls. We've had the other thing here is also about cultural risk taking. And if one thing that we've learned during the lockdown is speed is absolutely of essence. And if you're not doing things in a fast manner and you're not taking quick decisions, you are going to be in trouble. So we encourage people to start taking a few risks. We've started encouraging people to start deciding. So all of these have actually helped a lot from a cultural perspective for us to move forward. All in all, I would say this has been a great year for us. It's been a phenomenal year, and that which doesn't kill you always makes you stronger. I think we've really emerged far stronger than we were a year and a half ago.
Thank you so much, Marzin. The simple, celebrating the success and acknowledging the contribution through an award and celebrating it with family member clearly can bring a, excitement and happiness and joy that can motivate the family and the colleague to a level that possibly nothing else can. I also want to take this opportunity to show on the screen. Tomorrow we have our HR Excellence Awards and Conference. Both Mr. Paul Dupuis and Mr. Thiagarajan are associated with us. So I'd like to show the agenda for that. For those of you who'd like to join it, please do join during the day. We have some stalwarts from the industry joining it, and really would encourage the BW people initiative. It's our HR communities initiative. Let's take some more audience questions. There are 11. I may not be able to take all, but there's a question about sales. This is from Anju Negi. Sales, especially installations, can't be done virtually. How to bring back people with full enthusiasm? What are corporates doing? So first I'll ask you, Marzin, and then Mr. Thiagarajan. How do you bring back that confidence in the salespeople that, their well-being is looked after, their safety is being looked after? How are you kind of installing that feeling in them?
First, we developed our own protocol, in terms of making sure that everybody was checked temperature-wise, etc. Because it's not just the well-being of the sales team or the service team; it's also the well-being of our customers, whose homes we attend, and whose responsibility it is to take care of. So making sure that all the protocols are in place and followed. Next, we made sure that everybody gets insured, and it's absolutely critical that every single person who is on roll and off roll was given that commitment that God forbid something happens, we are able to take care of that. We made sure that every single person, twice a week, I get an update on the number of patients, current COVID cases, people that are in, people who have gone out, people that have been cured. All of that comes to us twice a week. So we have a proper monitoring system, not just with our on-roll employees, but also, with the entire larger ecosystem. So we monitor this. We make sure that if anybody needs help in terms of hospitalization, etc., that's taken care of. I mean, those are the basics that one needs to follow. And then, of course, we purpose the organization. We repurpose the organization. We tell them that the role that they're playing is so much more important than sitting at home, being able to give people pure water, safe water to drink. It's actually a responsibility that we have to fulfill. And when people buy into that larger purpose of making a positive difference, it really helps a long way in taking this. So doing your job is one thing, and making a difference in the world is another. And we try to make sure that people do make that difference and play a positive role in the lives of our customers.
Thank you so much. Now, there's another audience question which I'm taking. It is about employee retention. I'd like Divya and Mr. Thiagarajan to respond to it. During this time, everything is digital, so employees have complete access to interviews and easy access, because they don't have to travel, they don't have to take an off. So how are we addressing this? How are we doing on employee retention? Because organizations took salary cuts, so on and so forth. So how are we dealing with this? Let me ask Divya first, and then Mr. Thiagarajan.
Actually, I think Mr. Thiagarajan mentioned it, and so did Marzin earlier. When they see the rank and file see us making our goals real, that in itself is fervor and adds wings to their sales. Retention, Annurag, we have had no issues with retention. Or rather, let me rephrase, little issue with retention, because that our progress in itself acts as a huge validation to all that they are doing. And therefore, to my mind, all like-minded souls coming together and leading together is in itself a culture which is inclusive. So that, to my mind, that it goes down to the culture. more than what, of course, we all have our HR practices and you'll have point 1, 2, 3, 4, but subsuming all that is a culture that sits right at the center.
Fantastic. Mr. Thiagarajan, would you like to address this? Employee retention in times of hybrid working.
Dr. Batra, irrespective of the pandemic, given the economic outlook, the growth that the country will be witnessing, it is going to be a tough call. That retaining employees as well as hiring employees is going to be, we are right now going through that. Retention is manageable, but getting talent for the next phase of growth is going to be a serious challenge. Now, we have to look at, I think in terms of percentile terms, we all will be compelled to go to 70 percentile, 65 to 70 percentile in terms of compensation itself. So quickly, we have to activate the compensation benchmark study. The next one is the faster promotions. Organization like ours, which is 77-year-old, we may have to reinvent ourselves in that context. The youngsters, talented, look forward to quick promotions and growth as well. At the lower levels, we have to make their life safe and simpler. Like, for example, that you may have to increase your compensation in order they can lease a larger apartment for themselves because they are compelled to work from home as well. Like we are looking at how vehicle loan can be extended or vehicles can be provided even at lower levels. These are, whether it is two-wheeler, four-wheeler, we may have to become much more liberal in that context.
Thank you so much. There's one question that is coming from a lot of attendees, and it's about the burnout from work from home. I like Paul to address that, and maybe then bring it to everyone.
Sure.
Paul,
sure.
There is a burnout from work from home. How do we address that?
It's a very real issue. Before I comment on that, I just want to echo the comments made by the other panelists. Jim Rohn has a wonderful quote: "When the why is clear, the how is easy." The organizations that are thriving through the crisis and will continue to thrive are the organizations that are focused on purpose. Purpose-driven leaders, purpose-driven organizations continue to accelerate. And I would like to think that Randstad's one of those because we put people at the center of everything we do. We are essentially a people business. And as such, we were the fastest growing staffing firm in India last year. We continue to be the fastest growing. And the Great Place to Work affirmation was a nice pat on the back, but we're not looking for the awards. We're looking for the proof in the pudding when our people are engaged and they're being the best version of themselves. So we're on to something here. Burnout is a real issue. And Divya talked earlier about be kind to your mind, our partnership with Your Dose. I have to tell you, in the beginning, I wasn't sure. Your Dose is an EAP organization. It's basically counselors who are on standby to have a chat when people need to have a chat. Well, the usage is off the charts. Even the folks at Your Dose who have a lot of experience doing this in India are simply delighted at the usage, because that's the important part, is that people actually take advantage of it. So we started with our employees. Then we realized that this story is beyond just our employees. We're in the homes now. This new world has brought us right into the living rooms and the kitchens and the dens of our families, of our colleagues and their families. So we extended this solution, this service, to the families as well. Then we took it one step further. We extended it to all 62,000 of our contractors and temporary workers across the country. So burnout is a real issue. We listen to the voice of our people. I think, there's something that I have a coach. His name is Marshall Goldsmith. You may know of him. And he has this concept called compartmentalization. We just talked about it the other day. And he said, leaders today need to be able to switch on and switch off. It's so important to be in the moment. And it's not only for leaders, for everybody. As I sit here with you having this chat, in a few minutes, we'll log off. And then I need to go sit with my son as he starts to choose his courses for university in Canada. I need to be in that moment. And I can't bring the last moment with me. And then a half hour later, Divya and I are going to jump on a call with one of our important clients and all of our temporary workers, several hundred, and we're going to have a town hall with them. I need to be in that moment. So it's so important as leaders that now in this new world, while we physically maybe don't go to the office, It's important that we are fully in the moment and we switch to the next moment and give it the full attention it deserves. Burnout comes when we don't do that. Burnout comes when everything starts blending together and there's no separation. So it's very important also to take care of yourself, make time for the important stuff, for family, for friends, for self, for physical wellness, for mental wellness. So I think, Annurag, really it's about finding a healthy cadence. And I learned lessons from professional athletes, right? Sachin Tendulkar, I just read his biography. Amazing. This guy, his career, he had ups and downs, but he never let himself get too high and too low. He stayed in a zone his entire career. It's about finding that zone. And I think that's the key to avoiding burnout.
Thank you so much, Paul. It's time to kind of close with closing remarks. And let me start with Divya first. Divya, your closing remarks as we move into a new financial year. Hopefully work from home will become a segue into a hybrid working model where both mostly work from home, but when needed, showing up in office. And as Paul beautifully put it, to collaborate, to innovate, and to celebrate will be the new reason for visiting the office. Give us your closing comments.
Firstly, thank you to all my panelists. I have learned as much in this past 1 hour as what I have shared. So thank you all. The examples were exemplary. Marzin, Paul, Mr. Thiagarajan, everybody, Divya, you as well. My last bit would be we all lead. We all lead at Dentsu, and I would like to share that. And let's continue to lead together and be stronger for it.
Thank you, Divya. And I know that you do lead, and that is making a difference to your organization and to the community. Marzin, your closing comments.
I just think that we look forward to the next year with positivity. Tomorrow we close the year and we start a new year. You're only as good as your last month's performance, perhaps your last week's performance. So we need to keep moving up the ladder. We need to keep focusing on the future. And we need to keep ensuring that we continue to succeed and to do well. The last year has been transformative, to say the least. I think the next year will be even more transformative because some of the initiatives that we've taken are just going to accelerate in speed. So I wish everybody all the best. Thank you very much to all the panelists for some very deep insights. Thank you, Annurag, for leading the conversation. Where you get the best out of all of us. And wish you all the best for an amazing 21-22.
Thank you so much, Marzin. Thank you for being kind. Mr. Thiagarajan, your closing comments. Mr. Thiagarajan.
Batra, like others, I would like to thank both the Divyas, Marzin and Paul for excellent insights. But specifically, I would like to talk about Businessworld Group itself. I recall from last March, you have not dropped one of the events, and all your events were successful, and all your interactions go on as usual. So I draw inspiration from that. And your schedule has been more hectic than many of us, from morning to night. And keep up that good work. All the best to you.
Thank you, Mr. Thiagarajan. I must say, all of you have been fairly supportive of what we've done, what I have done, and you've been very kind to us and me, both in a professional sense and a personal sense. And really, your appreciation means a lot. And I think I believe in the fact that whatever is preordained happens, but you don't know that, so you got to give your best. And as Divya rightly said, and you said, you talk about growth. When colleagues see growth, they see progress. I think spurs them on to do better, because really, growth is such a thing. Once you see that, it is like it eggs you on. So clearly, the last 1 year has been transformative for us. We're grateful to God for giving us that year. I'm very mindful of the pain that a lot of people, both on the lives front and the livelihoods front, have faced. But it's up to you to make whatever you get, and luckily with the support of people like you, Mr. Thiagarajan, we've been able to build a new BW Businessworld hopefully over the next few years will be more impactful, and we'll be able to have a space in everyone's day. So thank you so much. Paul has been a big supporter. You've been a big supporter. Marzin and Divya, thank you again for being part of our initiative. Paul, the final word from you. And one thing I want to know is that you wrote one book in the lockdown. Is another book coming soon, Paul?
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you, Annurag. Yeah, I wrote a book in Bangalore, based partly on my adventures in India and my experience. I lived in Japan for more than 20 years, lived across APAC and so on. And my journey, it's about leadership, called the E5 movement, the Rule of Five. And Annurag also supported me. Yes, the second book is on the way, being written now as we speak. So crisis brings opportunity. And so there'll be more on the way. I just want to thank all the panelists as well for sharing today. I've learned a lot, and whenever I attend webinars as a participant or as someone in the audience, I always look for takeaways. We'll call them golden nuggets. I hope that the more than 1,000 people who are watching today on various platforms have some golden nuggets to take away and use in your day-to-day life. And I also want to repeat my admiration for Annurag and the entire BW team. Annurag, you and I had breakfast last March. It probably was March 11th, if I remember correctly, in Delhi. That was the very last flight I've taken since. And then I returned to Bangalore on March.
And I remember because you like to do very early morning breakfast. So, right. I can't forget, I have to wake up 2 hours ahead of my normal day. So,
that was after my early morning walk, but we had a nice breakfast, healthy breakfast, Annurag. You were leading the way. And then since then, you have really shown agility and resilience. You have in many ways reinvented what you do, but at the core, that hasn't changed. And we talk a lot at Randstad about this notion of Randstad Cares. Our entire customer satisfaction and delight program is based on Randstad Cares, as well as for our employees. I think BW cares as well, and certainly Annurag cares. And I agree. Every time I log into Facebook or any of the platforms, there's Annurag in an engaging conversation. So you have my admiration, sir. Thank you. And we're so proud at Randstad to partner with BW on this platform, the Randstad Leadership Dialogues. And we will continue. We have more planned. Looking forward to more engaging conversations. So thank you all again for joining today.
Thank you, Paul. I think I have been pleasantly surprised with what the team has been able to do. Paul, you interact with Tanvi, Mr. Thiagarajan, you interacted with some of my colleagues, and you're as good as your team. And Tanvi, Prerna, a lot of people that you don't interact with have contributed to it. And I must say, Paul, Rahul and your team, sometimes he can be his follow-up can be more than it should be, but really he contributes by making sure that whatever is expected out of us, that happens on time, that happens the right way. So I want to acknowledge him, because really he does his job with lots of seriousness, lots of proactiveness. And I think I like those kind of people. So really want to acknowledge them. There are other people on your team that I could, but thank you so much. And I wish all of you a great year. And I personally look forward to being of some use to you, and we as a platform being a catalyst in whatever journey that you're taking. So thank you for being part of this webinar today. Our conversation and content is because of the kind of insights that you as leaders bring to the table. And I just want to wrap up by saying that my key takeaways from today are 3. One, clearly the hybrid business model of having a workspace, which is physical, but mostly digital, virtual, or work from anywhere, not necessarily home, will triumph. I can say it both as somebody who's part of 2 organizations and listening to all of you. Second is clearly there is a burnout in work from home. So the way to deal with it is to be mindful, to be in that moment fully at that point of time. You talked about compartmentalization. I would also say to switch off at some point. I tell you, I get guilty feeling if I don't work on a Sunday. I'm built like that. I work on a Sunday. So yesterday, for the first time, I read books. In 1 year, I didn't work at all. I was telling my wife, I haven't worked today. I was feeling very, very guilty. She said, it's okay. You work very hard, so don't worry. But, really taking some time off to be able to rejuvenate yourself. I slept 12 hours on Sunday night, 10 hours last night. It clearly makes you feel better. So really self-care is very important. That's the point I'm trying to make. You have to take time off, whatever nurtures your spirit. It's physical activity, it's sleep, it's meeting your family, going and meeting your parents, whatever, So self-care that keeps you emotionally happy. Last point I want to make is that hopefully the coming year would be better than the last year. Hopefully we'll be over the next few weeks be able to deal with Corona and take whatever positive lessons we have had from the last 12 months. And I keep saying, whenever there is rain, look for rainbows. Whenever it's dark, look for the stars. There are enough rainbows and stars around us to look for. So I wish you luck as you enter a new year. And I wish you great health and well-being. Thank you so much. Thank you, Divya. Thank you, Marzin. Thank you, Mr. Thiagarajan. Thank you, Paul. And congratulations, Divya, on being the Randstad CEO for a day. We'll call you on the day to make sure our contracts are troubled.
Watch out, Annurag. She's a tough negotiator, let me tell you.
Okay, tougher than Bhuvna and Rahul. So anyway, take care and God bless you. We look forward to more engaging conversations with all of you, both as a group and as individual. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Bye.